We're sitting here with André Shepard, a U.S. citizen from Cleveland, Ohio. André, you are a deserter. You left the Army and went absent without leave.
I feel really good about it because this decision was right. Right now we're involved in an illegal war that involves the deaths of over 1 million people. And because of that, I can't allow myself to go back into that conflict. So it's better for me to walk away and say no than to live for the rest of my life with the knowledge that I was a part of this atrocity.
So from your standpoint, there are times when it's very important to desert.
That's correct. Because when you're faced with the choice of just following orders and, doing things that you know are wrong, as compared to saying, just standing up and saying no, it's much better to say no and deal with the consequences later than to just go along with what everyone else is telling you to do. And then you have to live with that. You are the only one that, you have to face every single morning when you look into the mirror. Mm-hmm. And right now, I'm pretty comfortable with looking at myself in the mirror because I know what I did was right.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people would say, though, that you signed up to the Army. You have a contract, you have obligations to fulfill, and you're not fulfilling your contract. That's we always get this argument when we're talking about these issues. Do you have an answer to that?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, we did sign a contract because it's a volunteer Army. The problem is, though, is that when you sign the contract, it doesn't matter if it's with the military or buying a house. When you sign the contract, you have trust between the two parties of the contract. In this case, it's myself and the U.S. government. Now, I trusted the U.S. government to tell me the truth about what was going on. Everyone knows that they haven't. When you look at the contract of the U.S. military, there are two main provisions. One is you have to defend the Constitution of the United States under any circumstances. The second provision is you have to follow the orders of your commanders as well as the President of the United States. In this particular case, you can't follow that contract. Why? Because this war is against the Constitution. That's been proven many times. Many people have talked about it. It's well documented. At the same time, the President of the United States is a domestic enemy of the Constitution, meaning that if we follow his orders and participate in this war, we're violating the first part of our contract. Meaning you cannot enforce that contract because you cannot satisfy both provisions in the contract. So in my case, the government broke the contract with me first. So then when I walked away from the military, that was the only logical response. And I believe any judge anywhere could tell them that. So that's when I started doing the research when I was in Iraq on the internet. We only had 1 hour a day, so I couldn't do a lot. But it was enough to start seeing the discrepancies between what the Bush administration was saying or even the Armed Forces Network was telling the military while we were eating our lunches and things, as compared to what other reporters or even places like Al Jazeera or even some of the Iraqis were putting up blogs about things that were actually happening in Iraq. They were describing about how the infantry was just wantonly killing civilians when they couldn't find any insurgents. They were talking about, how the Apache helicopters were, going around just indiscriminately blowing things up and killing civilians. Not necessarily on purpose, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. I mean, if, China launched a rocket and killed my entire family, but even though they didn't intend to, I would be extremely angry, because it's why did they have to die? They had no threat to you. It's the same thing when you look at the Iraqi people. It's why, their infrastructure is totally destroyed. Just like you said, right now there's a massive cholera outbreak because they don't have enough clean water. Whose fault is that? America's, because we went in there and destroyed their country. Same thing with depleted uranium. This is extremely suppressed. Depleted uranium is a low grade. It's basically the byproduct of the waste material of the nuclear enrichment that they use to coat on the bullets. It's very effective when you go after heavy armor. It can pierce practically anything. The problem with it is it's still highly radioactive. So when you use enough of this stuff, and they've been using it since the first Gulf War, it will completely irradiate the area, and it will take thousands of years before it goes back to normal. So now babies are being born with all sorts of defects. The cancer rate is skyrocketing, and this is all because of the hands of the United States. And this is where I started learning, especially after we redeployed back in February, as to the effects of what was going on. And then I was just, horrified and appalled, oh man, what did we do to these people, because there's no way all those people in that country are terrorists. It's not possible. I don't even think the majority even wanted to be terrorists. You know what I mean? They just want to live their lives like everyone else. And so that's when I started, going back into history as to find out what happened to make us want to go into this country and cause this sort of damage. And that's when I started finding out about the lies, especially with the WMDs, when they actually admitted in 2004, while I was still in Iraq, that they had no WMDs. But at the same time, they did the second Battle of Fallujah, which completely devastated the city. Now, had they passed that information on to the military, the Battle of Fallujah probably wouldn't have been necessary, because you just had a city of 20,000 people completely destroyed for what? Nothing. Because the WMDs was our primary mission. But there weren't any. So why is America there? Even now, 4 years later, we're still there. Why? And that was like the biggest lie. But after that, they were talking about, Al-Qaeda in Iraq is there, Iran is there, all sorts of things. They were just trying to find some type of new enemy to look for to justify the existence, our everlasting presence in Iraq. Yes, there was sectarian violence, but you have to think, had we not created a power vacuum, there wouldn't be sectarian violence. You know what I mean? This is like, we just started a chain reaction of misery and destruction in that country, but for what? I mean, it's completely useless. And the fact that the Bush administration keeps going on lying about it, even just a few weeks ago, he was on ABC still talking about, we would have invaded anyway because Saddam wouldn't let the inspectors in, which is a total lie. Everybody knows that Hans Blix and his team was allowed to go anywhere they wanted in Iraq. Saddam Hussein said it was okay because he wanted to prove it, So once I started getting all that, research and realizing, okay, this isn't cool. Then I went into Google and asked, okay, did we ever officially declare war on Iraq? Answer comes back, no, we have not. We gave an authorization to use any means necessary, which normally means if you do something like that, then you could send in special forces, whatever, do their job and get out. Quick, painless, and easy, instead of leveling the entire country. When you level an entire country, especially when you take rout an entire army, occupy the territory, this is warfare. So basically, we're fighting an undeclared war, which is in violation of the Constitution because the Congress is the only power allowed to declare war. The president would declare war on his own. So he was in violation of the Constitution. That fact alone goes back to what I was saying about the military contract being broken. He broke my contract because participating in that war, I'm breaking my own contract. And I know a lot of people say that this is oversimplifying the problem, but it's a reality. I mean, it's just like when you buy a house and the guy says, yes, you're going to pay for this house for 30 years and then you trust that this house is perfect. But then when you move into the house, you find out that, the floors are caving in, you have a crack in the foundation, you close the door and the door falls off. What do? You get a lawyer and you go straight to court and say, hey, what's going on? I just got swindled.
After a lot of research then and learning a lot of information that you had never dreamed of before, you made this decision to go absent without leave. Can you tell us a little bit about that crisis of coming to that decision and what happened to you after that?
Yeah, the problem with going AWOL, it's never an easy decision. No one ever does it in their right mind unless they were, in a bar one night and missed the roll call the next morning. That's by accident. Nobody intentionally goes AWOL unless there's a serious reason behind it. Because of the consequences that you face. If you go AWOL, I mean, one, you could lose rank, you could lose pay, you could, be confined in prison. And this is just with AWOL. Now, if they determine that when you leave the military and basically you just quit the military, then they can charge you for desertion. And that can go from serious jail time all the way up to the death penalty. And if they don't give you the death penalty, you will be discharged as a convicted felon.